Where are they now? I'm your host, Heather Lindstad, Chelmsford High, class of 1985. I'm so excited. We've got our first mother-daughter group today with Donna Dahlgren Martinez. I'm sorry, is your maiden name, but Dahlgren. Liz Dahlgren Natalie, I'm sorry about that. Class of 08 and class of 79. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I know. I know everybody wants to know what it's all about, but truthfully, the show is, we're just trying to find out what everybody else has done through the years. I think because we're a little, about Chelmsford and the town and what the high school has provided us. So I bring that up in this sense. So when you started at Chelmsford High, you luckily had a sister ahead of you.
I did, and she was a very high achiever.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I did, and it was such a large class.
Yeah.
And I was shy, and I just, my sophomore year I was involved with some sports.
Yeah.
But then, I had to move on, and because in our family, work ethics was very strong. We had to work, pay for our, if we wanted a car, we had to pay and work our butts off and buy a car, and I saved for college because I always knew that I was going to go to college.
Yeah.
So sophomore year was like that fun kind of year, involved with different things, but then junior year became like much more serious.
Yeah. So you talk about that, though. I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, too, right? It wasn't until '85 when the freshmen actually came to Chelmsford High, right? So so really your first year is as a sophomore.
It was awesome.
You said it was easy, or a little easier.
It was fun. It was so many people because we came from, I originally, sixth grade was the East School, just sixth grade, 4 classrooms.
Yeah.
And then McFarland School was just 7. That was huge. And we had to, we kind of, I think in some way that prepared us for the high school because there's 2 huge buildings and you had to get to each area, for classes and such. In the McCarthy, I guess that was the old high school at one point.
Yeah, at one point.
Yeah, and it just said it was huge. When we went to the high school, we thought, oh my gosh, we're grown up, and you meet so many other people because when you're at my age, you were friends with just people in your neighborhood.
Right.
Parents who had one car, you just met, people in the neighborhood. So it gave you an opportunity to meet other people from, all parts of the town. And my friend, this is like 5 or 6 years ago, because there's still parts of Chelmsford I really don't know. Because I've never been. And I learned when my kids were younger because we drove them to their friends. But yeah, there's still parts of Chelmsford I've never been to, and I grew up in town.
Yeah.
But the high school was, it was fun. It was it was kind of overwhelming, I think, too.
So who was that person that kind of transitioned you to teacher when you were a sophomore? Who was?
There's not one person specifically in sophomore. I don't remember. It was more so my junior year, because then the dating thing and all that business. And there was one specific English teacher. She did not care for the person that I was dating.
Yeah.
And she used to say that, oh, he's not the one for you, but I ended up marrying him. I married my high school sweetheart. It's kind of funny. But there was an art teacher, because I was involved with art, and my husband now, he was also, very artistic, but he was kind of a little like a lost soul. And so Miss Finity, she kind of helped that whole process and kind of directed where he is to go, because I used to say to my husband, if you don't have a plan, we're not going to be together. That's what I used to say. So
she was trying to give him the plan.
She gave him the plan, and she just was like a really wonderful person. She really was. And she encouraged me to continue art, but I went into a different direction. So
was it strange, and I'll ask Liz, so when you went into Chelmsford High and you go through the school system at Chelmsford and those kind of things, and you also had an older brother, though, a little bit older, 2 years though,
Yep.
to try to transition you. But did you just grow up knowing most of the stories about the high school? Because I think in Chelmsford, a lot of parents and everybody keeps the tradition of saying, well, this is how it was.
Yes, definitely. And
Oh, there's so many stories, but you can't even go.
And walking around, and my dad does a lot of signs around the school, so he'd say, oh, I just did a sign of the Hall of Fame, so I'd go look at it, or just being involved in town activities growing up, going to the high school even as a middle schooler made me feel comfortable. It was a big change coming here, but then you find your comfort zone sooner or later. So.
But as an athlete, was it a little bit easier to transition as a freshman? Now,
Definitely.
so your mom was a sophomore when she starts at the high school, as we call it. But
Right.
but talk about like the transition of just being a freshman and getting involved in sports, and how that all kind of made maybe it easier, maybe it made it harder because there's competition.
Yeah, I think it made it a lot easier, especially being a fall sport athlete, playing field hockey and starting preseason and captain's practices, getting to know the upperclassmen and knowing where the locker rooms were and those ins and outs before the hustle and bustle of day one was huge. Having that core community of the field hockey team right when you start was very helpful. Made it easier, and where to go. I was in the Hawthorne group, so where was my locker and all those things. So definitely transitioned easier, I think, being a fall athlete. And then going through, before you know it, it's pep rally and there's Thanksgiving game parade, the game, and so the year zipped by. Freshman year was almost like a blur. It was.
Now, she just brought up Hawthorne House, and everybody I talk about, everybody kind of remembers. Did you guys have houses?
Yes, we did. I think I was in Whittier.
Yeah, and
but
it's
I
always
don't-
something that's really funny when we talk about Chelmsford and graduating, and you look at someone and they say, oh, I graduated, and you're always like, what house?
Right.
I can't believe I remember.
I know.
I'm surprised.
Was Charlie in the same house?
I don't even know what house he was in. He was he was an interesting character in his day. He was. So I don't even know.
Was your brother in?
God, I
don't
don't know that
remember.
either.
I don't
But it is
know.
really funny. So
Yeah.
so obviously you had an influence by your dean.
Yep, dean and that group, my guidance counselor and all of that. Yeah, certainly. But I think I gravitated towards like my health teachers, and even in middle school, being involved like in enjoying gym class maybe a little more than other kids. And Coach Rich was, my softball coach, so kind of gravitating towards gym and health anyways.
Right.
So helped.
Now, going through the health thing, and that's kind of a funny thing, and it's fun to have the mother-daughter combination in that situation. So you went off to school. You knew you were going to head off to school. And did you always know nursing, or was the sciences?
Originally social work.
Okay.
I know I wanted to do something with helping people.
Yep.
I didn't know exactly which direction, but I leaned towards social work. So I started in that avenue, and then I said, it just doesn't feel right to me. So my father, he says, because my mom was a nurse, and he and my grandmother,
Kind of a generation.
yeah,
thing here
and my
going.
grandmother was almost going to be, she had like a month left, but in those days you couldn't be married and be in nursing schools. And my grandfather's going off to the service, so she decided to be married. So my father always said, Donna, you would be a wonderful nurse. But he was like, okay, Dad, I don't know about that, fine. But I've been a nurse for 37 years, and I do love it. I've worked in different avenues, and I still feel that every day I have to try to make some kind of a impact on patients.
So it was
I
truly
do.
a passion.
It is, but I
Yeah.
didn't think of it at that time. I know I wanted to do something for people. I wanted to make some kind of an impact on people every day. So I guess I do.
Yeah.
I guess I do.
And so
Yes,
did
I
you
do.
see that? I mean,
Oh,
I know
definitely.
I know we
Yeah.
kind of talked about it, and you
Yeah.
would mention that, your dad's in the arts, makes the signs and stuff
Yeah.
like that. There's the art thing.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he had a big influence playing softball.
Right.
And being in
Coaching.
sports, and your
Oh, yeah,
dad
he
was the
coached
coach
you
and
from-
stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we'll flashback that he helped you when you were the JV coach of softball at
Yep.
CHS.
I'm going to
but-
tell you, though, Heather, that she would never even played softball. When she was small, she would not play unless her dad coached her.
Oh,
and
really?
that started, yes, way back when, 5, 6 years, yeah.
So he had the influence
Yeah.
on your athletic career. But were you watching your mom as a nurse and thinking that the sciences were, because you just said
Certainly.
that you were gravitating that way even in middle school.
Right, exactly. And seeing, how strong of a work ethic she had and all the stories she'd come home and tell about, different families and different impact really she had made on patients' lives. I never wanted to deal with the bodily fluids that she dealt with on a regular basis. So, found a way I could be in the sciences.
With the nutrition
Yep,
and the...
yep,
yeah.
exactly. So, but I could still make that impact, where it felt right to me and my interests.
Right.
And it was kind of cool for a period of time. We were working together at Lowell General, and we would...
What were you doing together? Or just because you were both at the same hospital?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'd have patients that I'd work with in the outpatient setting go in and be
couldn't go- I
inpatient,
know.
and they would, they'd see our same last name or whatever it was.
And I always would ask, who's your
Right.
dietitian?
Oh, okay.
And I said, that's my daughter. And they, oh my God, they would
vice
always be
versa. We'd
so-
always get great feedback about
It's-
each other.
Which is
It
kind
was-
of cool.
yeah.
A little connection there, yeah.
Now you're not at Lowell General anymore, or you?
I am. I
Okay.
originally was a Saints girl, but
Okay.
we merged. The hospitals merged together, and it's all one, group now. So I'm at the main campus.
And you're doing a multitude
Oh, wow.
of, like you always do, a multitude
So
of
many,
things.
I can't even keep
so
track.
You're,
yep.
you're at Lawrence.
Yep, I work for Lawrence General.
Okay.
I'm doing outpatient nutrition counseling. I also adjunct teach at Merrimack College, starting this past year, the nutrition program.
Yeah.
And I have a private office in Chelmsford where I do outpatient nutrition counseling for individuals and groups and families. And I just moved my office to the center of town, so it's kind of exciting.
So not living in Chelmsford, but know the
Yes.
community well enough to give back.
Yes,
And I think that's kind of, you talk about your dad making the signs, you talk about giving too. Same thing with coaching. Is that
Right.
what, did you do the JV coaching and the softball because it just felt like the right thing to do to give back to the community that gave you so much, or how did that
Yep.
softball coaching kind of come
How'd that all
about?
come about? I think it was definitely a time and place thing. Coach Rich called me up a week before tryouts asking if I was available, and I definitely wasn't, but I made some tweaks to my schedule, and I thought it was an amazing opportunity that I couldn't turn down. I had a memorable JV coach, and I've had memorable coaches, of course, over the years, and I just thought, how cool is this that I could be in that role?
But was it really more cool so that now Dad had the influence, but then you were influencing him because he was your assistant coach?
Yeah. So I was
that
put
was
in the
funny.
situation where I was JV coach, but I needed a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And I don't keep a good book, and I didn't want the students to have to worry about that. So my dad came along and did my book and was the snack guy and whatever else that dads do, on the bench, keep it all in order. And
Get sucked in because,
Yep.
because you told him, like, you made me this softball player, now you got to come
this
along
is
with
just
me.
what happens.
Yeah.
This is the cycle of life. Yep. So I think at times he may have had more fun than I did. I was, worrying about the roster and the equal, playing time and all those things, and he's, just joking around, having a great time playing fungo and all that. So it was a great experience, great 4 years, and hard to not continue because I knew how much fun he was having.
Right.
But we found other things to, do together, other hobbies, and it's just a very memorable time.
So when you guys both talk about when you were choosing schools, though, you didn't go far.
Right.
And again, so bring it back to the Chelmsford thing. It just seems like people don't tend to. Some kids nowadays, it's kind of one of those things. But when you were looking at schools, was it there a thought of ever leaving the area, or was that just something that
Well,
just felt?
for me personally, it was financial.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to a school that I'd have to worry about loans and all that stuff. So, because like I said, we paid for our own education. So, and I always think about when when our kids went to school, I said, the first 2 years, I want you to be at least an hour away because, for the adjustment. After the 2 years, you can go anywhere you want. That's how I just, wanted to get connected.
Yeah.
So every school that she applied to, she got accepted. And I loved Simmons. I loved what Simmons, what stood for. It was a John Simmons who developed that school for women because he owned factories. And he would see women, working hard, blah, 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 and he said they need to be educated. So he developed Simmons School for women. And I loved the whole thing behind it. So she fell in love. It's an awesome area, Fenway.
Well, yeah,
area.
and
Oh my
certainly.
gosh.
I got the
Yeah.
opportunity to coach at Northeastern for
Yeah.
a long time, so it was a nice area.
So
but-
I was happy she chose that. And I think that whole setting, better than being way up in the boonies, right?
Yeah.
No, she doesn't like the boonies.
I knew I wanted to stay close. definitely
Yeah.
wanted to stay, be a car ride, train ride, bus ride for family things. And
Right.
we had a family member who wasn't in great health when I was in school, so I wanted to be able to come home and do some work, on breaks at home and whatnot. So, yeah, it was nice to be far enough, but not
Right, so
too far.
then you were at Keene State for a
Yeah.
little bit, and then obviously it was easy when you just went to Merrimack. I mean, that's
Yep,
right
right down the
there
road, and a great place to be.
right. So how is it standing in front now? Being, I mean, it's got to be a little tougher than being the JV softball coach in front of a group.
It sure is. I think the weirdest part is being called professor, and even though day one I say, you can call me Liz,
Yeah.
but the emails being addressed to Professor Natali is weird, and
Yeah.
but the relationships you make with these adults, really. I mean, these are upperclassmen graduating, going into their careers, and you kind of have that last chance to make an impact on where they may go.
Right.
So it's been really interesting, and in keeping me still on the up and up of what's going on in my field, so then I can now give that information to my students. So it's a challenge, but it's fun.
Did you?
Cool.
I mean, had you really thought about ever becoming a professor? I mean, I know people talk
Yeah.
about going back, and their other world would be to go into teaching
Sure.
and those kind of things. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's well. So I had put the bug in my advisor's ear when I was studying at Merrimack, and then a month after I graduated, they offered me 2 adjunct opportunities. So of course I was like, well, here it is. Ask and you shall receive. So be
Yeah.
careful what you ask for. And
Yeah.
last semester, first semester, 2 classes and some other things on campus. It was awesome. It was totally different than what I guess I really did think, but just great to build relationships with the students. And now some of them are shadowing me in my jobs and
Right.
thinking about different careers and whatnot. So it's very
Yeah.
cool.
But would you give it up? Would you ever give up the
Other stuff.
to
I don't think I could ever just do one thing every day.
No.
That's my personality.
Yeah.
Fills every little.
I just like
Time.
having my hands in different things. I think maybe if you opened up my brain, there'd be all these different compartments, and I need to make sure each compartment is being stimulated at any given time. So I like the way my all my opportunities have kind of joined together and formed this puzzle, and that's what it is most days. But I go home at night really being thankful for where I'm at.
Although I've got to ask you though, you've got that 495 drive, and that's got to be the worst thing ever. That I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, so I have to say I'm thankful that I did the Boston, positions, and then slowly worked out to Medford. Still hated 93,
Yeah,
and then I
okay.
ended up, back in Chelmsford and Andover in this chunk of space. So it's not as bad as going into the city.
right,
So, but you gotta like your car a bit.
yeah.
It's okay.
So staying local though, I mean, you as a nurse and those kind of things, is it funny when you run into the local Chelmsford community? Like, and everybody, I mean, I do think that a little bit sometimes we are like Cheers, like everybody knows your name.
Yes.
And in your positions, right, you're always working with people. Like, is that
Yes.
kind of sometimes like you're like,
Well, people
Or
at
Market
work.
Basket.
Oh,
you
I
see
no,
people
I put the
and-
blinders on at Market Basket.
I know, but-
I don't. I just get in, get out. No, but working in the area that I'm working in now, it just I see so many people, and that from Chelmsford,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. We're part of Chelmsford because it depended what part of Chelmsford that you grew up in.
Right.
That if I would know you more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So just the other day, I saw somebody, a Chelmsford cop.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of connected, and I think that patients actually feel comfortable.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
That somebody's going to take care of me. That's from where. I know it sounds so minor, but it does make people feel more at ease. They feel like they know you.
right.
You know, and when they're nervous and such. So.
Well, it's kind of like Liz putting your shop or your profession back into Chelmsford, right?
Yeah.
And it's got to be a comforting feeling to give back.
Oh, totally. And you can't help but I collaborate with other physicians in town and that are also local to the community, and it's nice that all that overlap. It's when you want to be a stranger, don't necessarily work and live in the place that you grew up in. But like most of the time, I think it comes in handy. It's positive to be where you know and where people may know you.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
Very positive.
So in all of your time together, I mean, what else are you doing? Like, the free time that you guys find, is it,
We do. Do things.
we do things.
You and
go to-
Dad.
Yeah.
You and Dad do etching together.
yeah,
Yes.
that's a new thing.
Yeah.
So there's the artistic part
Yeah,
that
and-
Dad gave.
Yeah.
What is the etching thing? I mean, you're doing it in Chelmsford or?
Yeah, so it's just a fun hobby that him and I, when we stopped doing softball, we
Right.
dabbled in glass etchings,
Yeah.
and it started off being just making little gifts for people, put their initial on a beer glass and happy birthday.
Right.
And then it's evolved where him and I will do fundraisers for like the Lowell Humane Society, where we'll teach other people how to etch glassware.
Okay.
And the money will go towards a nonprofit. We have a couple other events coming up this month to raise funds for nice organizations.
So if
that-
people want to do it, where can they find out more
Yeah.
about it?
So our Facebook page is really all we have to get our name out there. Etched by Elizabeth, and
Through Charlie in the background.
so he
He creates, helps. She comes up with the idea, and
Yeah.
he puts it together.
He wants
Yeah.
zero acknowledgement, honestly,
Yeah.
to the point where it's annoying. I'm like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Dad, this was really cool. Like
Right.
the feedback on this was awesome. And he's like, oh yeah. What's next? Yep, moving
Right.
on. But it's something he works just as hard as I do, but we also are benefiting other people, which is awesome.
Right. You mentioned the Lowell Humane Society. I know
Yep.
that's one
We're
of your
very
things
involved, yeah.
because of the dog Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've
Very
always
special
rescued.
rescue,
We've
yeah.
Okay.
always rescued.
Yep.
So
this starts
so
from
this
way
is
back.
more of a family
Yeah.
thing though
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, for years. And
Yeah.
and then became as involved as we can. When time is limited, there's still ways that you can give back to
Yeah, she'll
organizations.
call me up. I just got an urgent need for the Humane Society. They need lettuce. Are you out and around? Can you drop some off? Things like that.
Well, you know what? The town of Chelmsford is lucky to have you guys and have you stay local, support the people of Chelmsford, and hopefully, I think it is because the experience was so great at Chelmsford High and all the school system. I always think it's terrific. So I wanted to say thank you for being the first mom and daughter duo on my set, and it was wonderful to talk to you. And again, I can't thank you enough, but keep giving because I know you will. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.